why don't we start with your CV and the things that you are doing now? Why don't you tell us a little bit, what are the things that you are doing now and the prospect of success on any of the projects that you are involved now? Tell us about the present.
So there are two major projects there are several, but I'll talk a bit about them, but I'll say how they tie together because I think that's the interesting part. I'm working a lot about, regarding the public sphere in Jerusalem, as far as the relationship with the ultra-Orthodox, which is one part. The second part is that I'm working for young families in Jerusalem. That's a big part of my job because the non-ultra-Orthodox segment in Israeli society didn't get a lot of attention for many years. So that's something that I'm working on. And the third part that I'm working on, I think it has to do, all of it has to do with, it's all part of the same thing, is that I'm working and trying to figure out how Israeli society can work together. And that's part of the same thing. Basically, what's been happening is that I've been active in many ways, like, against the disappearance of women public sphere, and something that I realize is that we don't really know how to put everything together and to make everyone work together, kind of. But I'll talk about it more in the as we talk. So those are the major issues, and we have elections in half a year, so we're less than half a year, so we're deep in the campaign, trying to get the Jerusalemites to go out and vote for us. To go out and vote and to change the way the city is being run and to get it a healthier and stronger city than it's ever been before.
Tell me something. What do you mean that we have to learn how to work together? I think I understand. It's the obvious, but can you go deeper into that?
Sure. I'll put it in. I'll talk a bit about what we did regarding Shabbat, and I think that will give. That will give a perspective. Basically, over the 65 years that the State of Israel has been around, Shabbat has always been an issue that's been discussed, and the people, Ben Gurion and the people that really shaped the way Shabbat is in Israel, they took the halachic way of how we're supposed to celebrate the Shabbat, and said, okay, these places it will be halachic, and these places it won't be halachic, the Orthodox, the halacha, but there wasn't, and that's how it's been. Like the offices are closed on Shabbat, there's no public transportation on Shabbat, but I think that there was never any discussion what kind of Shabbat we want to have. And so what we started doing in Jerusalem is we started working with the Jerusalemites. Something that we discovered is that young families don't have what to do on Shabbat. Now, I'm Orthodox, so my Shabbat is great. I'm fine. Everything is okay. My children are happy on Shabbat. We go to shul in the morning, and then they go to the children services. They get their candy or chocolate or whatever, and then we come home, we have our meal, we have friends over, everything is okay. And we discovered that non-Orthodox have a very hard time in Jerusalem because almost everything is closed. All the different places for children and parents to hang out together, they're closed on Shabbat. And we decided together to work to open these places on Shabbat. Now, that's not something that's very typical for an Orthodox member of city council to work to open places on Shabbat, but we felt that that's a challenge that we have to deal with. And it started from a very practical place. These people need something to do on Shabbat. They don't have what to do on Shabbat, so let's make it work for them. But as we worked more, we discovered that, and that's what I feel today, that it's not just the story of Shabbat. And sweetheart, I won't say it's not just the story of Shabbat. It's one second. Abba, I need you to take. I'm sorry. There we go. Mother 4.
Yeah, exactly.
So. Okay, so basically what we discovered is, we started from a very practical place. These families need what to do with their children on Shabbat. Let's find something for them. And we were thinking about it more than anything because, young families were leaving the city, and we realized that's a challenge that we have to face. And also when we talked to rabbis about it, that's the way we presented it. That's one story. The second story is the whole issue of public sphere and women in public sphere. And basically what was happening is that there were very small groups that were putting a lot of pressure on these issues. Small groups putting a lot of pressure on these issues, and basically what happened is that they managed to change the way the public sphere was in Jerusalem when women started disappearing from public sphere. And again, on this issue we were fighting back, and we went to the Supreme Court a few times. Went to the Supreme Court a few times to solve the problem. 1 second. Abba, no, they can't be here. Abba, they can't be here. Take them to the room, okay? Sorry. And we went to the Supreme Court to solve the problem. But as time went by, and I feel that's something that's very strong now in our work here in Jerusalem, we realize that it's not about these small battles. There's something very, very deep in Israeli society that has to be figured out. The State of Israel was born 60-something years ago, and basically we still live our Judaism in Israel the way it's been lived, I don't know if that's the exact word, for 2,000 years. And we took exactly the same Judaism and we brought it to Israel. And we don't really know how to run a country with this Judaism. And something that we're working now on is, and one of the characters that we're studying to understand it is Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, I know you know, I'm just going to give a short description, basically totally changed Judaism once he realized that the world that has been is changing dramatically. And when he realized that the temple isn't going to exist for long, and when he realized that the Romans, right, that's the one, are taking over and everything is changing, he tried. What I think he did is that he took Judaism and figured out what's the core, and what are the important moral guiding, or it's not the exact word, important issues. It's not the exact word, but
ingredients, elements.
Elements, but also values. That was values.
Yeah.
And he tried to figure out what are the values, and then he redesigned Judaism to work also when we don't have a temple anymore, and also when we don't have our independence. Now, the 2,000 years without a state were very hard, but at the same time we can say he did a great job. He managed to recreate Judaism in a way that can last for 2,000 years without a state, without independence, even though Judaism was created originally for a nation that has a state. And the way he redesigned Judaism, first of all, he had to do it with a lot of power, a lot of understanding that he's doing the right thing. He was a great politician, I must say. I read his quotes, and he's pretty amazing. And he managed to change Judaism to make it work. And I think that our generation, in a sense, and that's what I think we're trying to do, what was done for 65 years is that we took the Judaism, the regular Orthodox community Judaism, and we brought it to the state, but we didn't know how to redesign it. And I think that what we're doing in Jerusalem, especially regarding Shabbat, is to try to redesign it in a way that would work for a nation, that has a state and is trying to figure out how the state should be. And what we're doing is we're trying to figure out what are the core issues and ingredients, and what are the values that stand behind Shabbat. resting, spending time with your family, spending time with your community, and then to try to design it to work for a city.
Rachel, you are saying so many things that that are so revolutionary. Okay, you're using Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who basically created rabbinic Judaism. So, and you are creating your own Yavne kind of thing. And moving forward, I completely agree with you. The issue is, I'm going to ask you like a personal question then a political question. Aren't you afraid that you are going to open things in Shabbat and then your kids would like to transgress Shabbat? Are you working against, I mean, like your morality, your ethics, your love for the state of Israel and for the future of the Jewish people is telling you to do something in which Shabbat is going to be embraced by everybody somehow with basic principles, but then your kids, who we look in the screen sometimes, they're behind, very cute, will say, okay, mommy, אני רוצה ללכת לקולנוע גם כן. You know, I want to go, you know, I want to go to the movies, I want to go there. So are you, so I want to know, how do you operate the internal battle that the prophetic voice in you is asking to do things kind of go against your own interest?
First of all, I believe that when you raise children, you sow the seeds and you water with a lot of love and with the morals you believe in and what you hope that your children will be. But at the end of the day, you know, they are independent, and whatever they'll choose, and I'll accept whatever they choose. I hope I will. But I hope I'll have the strength to do it. But I feel that the way the world is today, you know, it's not, you know, when my children will join the army, they'll meet everything. And when they walk down the street, they meet everything. It's not that today everyone around us is Shomer Shabbat. It's, you know, there are, especially as teenagers, you have, you know, different clubs open and stuff. And I think even on the contrary, it forces us to discuss the issue of Shabbat from a much younger age. And, you know, my children know that some people are Shomer Shabbat and some people aren't Shomer Shabbat. And that's, you know, and we are. But I understand what you're saying. You know, I can give a lot of love and the morals and whatever, and hope that, and a lot of I don't know. I have a lot of faith that that they'll follow my footsteps. But if they will or they won't, it's their decision. In many ways.
Rachel, Yochanan ben Zakkai had to deal with the destruction of the temple and how Judaism would go. You are using the metaphor in the opposite, in the sense of,
right.
It's not that we have the destruction of the temple, we have the construction of the temple called Medinat Israel. We have, before we had Churban Abayit, we had the destruction, now we have created. You're saying, we have created the temple called Medinat Israel, the state of Israel, and we are operating in the same way as if the temple didn't exist. So as the Judaism was created after the destruction of the temple, we have to create a new Judaism after the construction of the state of Israel. That's the way you're using it, which is absolutely fascinating. And so what is your vision?
First, I want to say something a second before, just before. The State of Israel has been around for 60-something years, and for all these years, I think we didn't have the energy, or it wasn't possible to deal with these issues. We were all of the energy of the State of Israel, you know, of the people. We were busy, you know, in wars and building, and I feel that our generation, we have already the energy to start having this discussion. I think it has to do a lot with the summer demonstrations a year and a half ago. They were. I think that was a tipping point in Israeli society. I think that's when we started, thinking on our own, in a sense. That society, people in the Israeli society said, you know what, it's time to figure out who we are, what we stand for. Suddenly we could talk about what we believe in, and that's something that Israelis, if you would talk about morals or values, just a few years ago, people would say, or Zionism. People would be, no one talks about Zionism. And now, again, people are talking about Zionism. And regarding my vision, I don't really know. I don't think we have a Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai these days. I think we have a lot of people that together we will try figuring it out. I think if you think of Ruth Calderon in the Knesset, I think she's doing part of that. Dov Elboim, I don't know if you know these names. You probably do. I look at all the energy around me, and a lot of people, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out who we are, what we stand for, what is this Jewish state, what does it mean? And if I take it one step ahead, the state of Israel was born basically to solve problems. There were obviously the Holocaust, but even before, the Jews didn't have a state, and it was very hard in Europe. And my mother's family was originally from Germany, and they escaped the United States, and then my mother made Aliyah, and my father's family is from Tunis. They were very Zionist. They made Aliyah immediately when the state of Israel was born, but it was also very hard already to live in Tunis. And it was basically, we were a country of refugees, people from different places that didn't work out, and we had to see how, this was a place people hoped to make their life better. And also there was like a big dream, a state for the Jewish nation, but there was a dream, and people escaped from something, but no one knew exactly what they're coming to. No one could reframe it. I don't know, we can kind of compare it to the United States. There aren't many nations that were born over the past hundreds of years. Most of the nations have been there before, if you think of nations in Europe. And the United States, it was born also as a country for refugees, or people, that dreamt of a better future. And I think that for many years, for 80-something years, no one really knew what does the state stand for, and what does it mean to be an American. The person that really rephrased being an American is Abraham Lincoln, and he really managed to figure out the core of being American. And I think that's what we're trying to do now in Israel. So there, in the United States, it took 80-something years. Here, it's taking us 60-something years. But I think that's what we're trying to figure out. I can say in a nutshell that I think that the state of Israel needs to be much more Jewish. We have to figure out what are the Jewish values we stand for. But the Jewishness can't be in a typical halachic way. And what we're doing with Shabbat is exactly that.
So, Rachel, I have a few questions that my people here are asking. So I'm going to ask you two questions. One is, what resistance do you encounter, and how do you meet that resistance in yourself? With anger, with fear, with frustration?
In myself?
One is, yes, exactly. One is resistance, and what do you do with this? And the other question, tackle two questions here. What are your thoughts about changing things for women in Israel?
Yeah. Okay, so as far as the resistance, at the beginning it was very hard. It was very hard also to explain to myself what I'm doing with the Shabbat. And, as you were saying, it's like the opposite of everything I was educated. We're doing now something also very similar with the kashrut, going against the kashrut system of the rabbinate and trying to create something alternative, which is orthodox, but in a very in a different way as far as the relationship between the place and the kosher system. But And both of these issues, it's very hard because that, it's like throwing away, it seems like you're throwing away everything you were raised on and everything you believe in. But two things I think made it much easier, and one is to think again, what's the core and what you really believe in, and what's the vision. The second thing is also, we have the Gabizon Medan, the Rabbi Medan, and Ruth Gabizon, that she's very...
Yeah, she was a speaker at BJ a few months ago.
Okay, so you know her.
Yeah.
An amazing, brilliant woman.
Yes.
They sat together in the 90s, actually after Rabin was assassinated, and they tried to figure out how can we have state and Judaism, how can we put it together in a better way. And they came up with that brilliant idea. They talk about divorce, marriage and divorce. They talk about Shabbat, and they talk about conversion. Now, the other two issues I don't want to discuss, but Shabbat, they came with a brilliant idea. They said yes for everything that has to do with community and everything that has to do with sorry, I lost the word. Culture and doing things together on Shabbat. And those are things that should be open: cinema, coffee places, concerts, museums. Shops and shopping centers should be closed. And I think that gives you, I think that's like a flavor of where I hope we'll go. That you really figure out and you say, okay, Shabbat is a time to spend with your family and your friends. It's not a time to work, so we're going to find the way to make it work properly together. So that's something that also made it much easier for me, that I felt that I'm not the only one that's saying it, that people said it years ago. Some of you even said that if you write Google, Gabizon Medan, Rachel Azaria, you get a lot of, a lot comes up, because it was really something I used all the time.
That's great. So Rachel, that takes me, since also you talk about Buber, somebody philosophy very dear to us. I believe part of our community, BJ, is based on the philosophies of Martin Buber and Abraham Joshua Heschel. Martin Buber, in the sense of I-thou relationship, it's about encounter, and we meet God in that encounter, and Heschel about the sanctity of time. In that intersection, we created this congregation called BJ. So the two questions that I'm going to combine into one is, what role do you see about us, Jews in the diaspora? Do you think that the Israel diaspora, this Gola, this terminology still apply in the new Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rachel Azaria equation? You understand what I'm saying? It's I know there was a meeting of Israelis. There are 250,000 Israelis in New York City, and the Consul of Israel talked to them the other day at the 92nd Street Y, and he said something absolutely revolutionary, which I'm very happy to hear, which was, we have to stop seeing you as Yordim, as people who left Israel. We have to see you as Shlichim, as people who are representatives of Israel, which was a complete paradigm shift. So as I'm asking you, what do you see is the role of those of us who are deeply committed to Judaism and deeply committed to Israel in this new paradigm?
So there are two things that aren't, I'll start with I think that I don't know if you want to call it diaspora or whatever, your congregation and many congregations, I think, I hope you'll be much more embedded in Israeli society, in a sense that you will help us shape what I'm talking about, this, more kind of figuring out who we are and what we stand for. I think that we're part of the same story, and I don't think that we can tell ourselves our story without, it's our story. You and us, and I don't know what word to use. If you like the word diaspora, I don't know. It's always a, and I think that we need to work together to shape it. Just like we're trying here in Israel to redefine who we are, I think that this is also, that will be part of the same kind of shaping. And I think that this whole thing of, Israeliness, and I believe it will be less and less concrete. Something else, and also, what it's important for me to say, I don't think I can say that I'm inviting, but I think it has to be clear that we're not doing this on our own, that we're together in this story. I feel in Jerusalem, I feel it very strongly that, different congregations from all over the world are, you're holding, you are, how do you call it, Wall Street, you're holding shares, is that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah, shares or stocks in Jerusalem, your stockholders in Jerusalem and in the state of Israel. And I think that this is discussion that we have to have together, and I think you need to be part of it, an important part of it. I also think that all the different parts of Judaism have to take part in this reshaping. The second thing I want to say about what the Israelis that don't live in Israel anymore, this is something that catches me. It's very hard for me, and I think it's one of the big issues that big reasons I'm so active, and it's that many of my childhood friends don't live in Israel anymore, for different reasons. Some because life here became too hard and they went out to search for a better life, and others because they got amazing job offers. They're very extremely talented people that in Israel that they were just grabbed by MIT or whatever, and that's something that really scares me, because we're dealing with the brain drain. That's a big issue in Israel, and I want to make Israel a good enough place that people will want to live in, and I want to make sure that our universities and everything we do is so good that if you have a good job offer from MIT, you'll think twice, because you really have a great opportunity, and that will force a lot of hard work for many people to make it happen. But if we continue with this brain drain, we're going to stay. The state of Israel we're losing a lot of our very bright brains. So, it's complicated, but I hope we'll manage to first open up to have this big discussion and share, but to make sure that also the state of Israel is a place that people want to live in.
Rachel, keeping it within the half an hour, I have one last question that really I asked you before, but I think I interrupted you with your answer to the first one, which is your thoughts about changing things for women in Israel. Women of the wall, and I'm not talking only about women of the wall. Okay, I'm talking about in general how you see things changing and evolving for women in Israel.
So Israel is a very feminist country. It's been that way for many years. In the declaration of the State of Israel, there were women, Golda Meir and Rachel Cohen, they were both part of the declaration. In the army, women served from day one. We always had women members of the parliament. In many ways, we were a very feminist country. And also, my generation was a very feminist design, because when I joined the army, that was when Alice Miller went to the Supreme Court and she won, and she was the first woman that was permitted to go to the course to become a pilot. And actually, when I joined the army, we were the first time that we were asked if we want to go to the course to become a pilot. I have glasses, so it wasn't a possibility, but that was a big issue in the 90s. I think Israel became more and more feminist. But because of the change among the ultra-Orthodox society, and I think it's a lot because of that, also women gained a lot of power in the ultra-Orthodox society, and also, so that's one reason. And the second reason is because the ultra-Orthodox felt that they're becoming more and more part of Israeli society, and that really scares them. I don't know if you're aware of what's going on these days in Israel, but it's... Yeah. And that's why they started, they looked for something that will define them and differentiate them from Israeli society and pull them back, and also something that will make sure that the ultra-Orthodox women don't become too strong. And that's why they started with this idea of segregation and disappearance of women from public sphere. I can say that over the past 4 years, we've been very successful, and we've really managed to change it. Women are back in the public sphere very, very strongly. And in many ways we've been successful. Now there's this whole, the issue of women of the wall, that it's interesting because it's been around for many years. It's not something new, but the fact that now it's something that's been discussed and we're looking for solutions, I think it's part of that same success. That really you can't, I feel that Israeli society has reached a point that people aren't willing to be quiet about these issues anymore. And we're not willing to say, and I think of that's part of the same, trying to recreate this Israeli society kind of. We're not willing to say, which has been in the past, we do what we believe in, you, the ultra-Orthodox, do what you believe in. Don't come near us, we won't get near you. And I think that as we're trying to redefine our society, we don't want that kind of discussion anymore. We want to find a way of something that we all believe in, something that we can, find the core of Israeli society. It won't be an easy. Someone told me, you speak so nicely, but then you go to the Supreme Court every few months. But I think it's part of the same thing. You have to have tough fights to have people willing to sit with you on the same table and discuss what you believe in. And I think we're doing the same thing. We're having these tough fights, but we're also offering all the time to sit on the table and have these discussions.
Thank you, Rachel. I just want to, first of all, I want to say thank you on behalf of all of us, on behalf of all of us who are around this table, and on behalf of all the people who are going to watch this video. And I want to ask you just a final comment. You have around the table people very committed with Israel, people very committed with the Jewish community in America, and people who are going to watch also. Do you have any charge for us, any invitation, any thoughts, any wishes, anything you would like to tell us, say to us?
I want to say, remember that the state of Israel is the state of all Jews, and therefore you are entitled, not only entitled, you are demanded to be part of the shaping of the moral values and of what the state of Israel stands for. So just join in, talk. I'll say something else also. Often, for some reason, God knows how it worked out that way, but often leaders and Jewish leaders around the world have more opportunities to meet our government than people in Israel do. That's how it works out, of all the delegations, and talk to them about these issues, talk to them about the moral issues. We need much more discussion of this in politics, and we're doing it here, and the way we vote, but that's also something that, if it comes from you, I think will make things much stronger.
Thank you so much. Toda rabba lach.
I understand you're starting like a new,
yes, it's a new project.
Your community is in the big discussion. I'm sure you'll do a great job. I was Friday night once at your community. Was amazing.
Thank you. Kol hakavod, keep doing your holy work, okay?
Thank you. Sure.
Later out. Bye-bye.
Later out.